Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fun episode of Tell Me Why, a short, sharp podcast for busy Beatles people in the know or busy Beatles people who want to be in the know. And before we get started today, I want to very quickly do some business with all of the John Lennon fans out there. Yes, we are 4 weeks away from the release of Shades of Life Part 2, Some Forever. We finally found a fantastic printer. This is the bad copy. That had the photos were absolutely too dark and they just weren't seeable. And the book was bound too loosely. It was going to come apart. So we moved on to a new printer. Everything is looking wonderful. And the week after the Fest for Beatles fans in Chicago, which is August the 8th through the 10th, we will be signing, wrapping, boxing, and shipping out the book. So thank you for your patience. And it is on the way finally after all these months. So it's kind of a treat to make up for the fact that you had to wait so long. We have an extremely special guest today to talk not only about the person she wrote a biography about, but also John as well. I mean, he figures into this factor too. She is a journalist based out of New York and an author. She was one of the authors that contributed to Stardust, the David Bowie story, and The Wild One, the story of Iggy Pop. She also was one of the authors contributing to Mike Ronson, The Spider with the Platinum Hair. Great books, all. But none of those were really her passion. The person that she always wanted to write about and someone that she was close friends with, and actually, if you read her book, went to happenings and events with this individual, this great artist, Yoko Ono. Finally, this book finally emerged. It is a gorgeous book. It is a hardback book. It is artistically done. I mean, it looks like a poetry book. It is in many ways. It is a beautiful collection of Yoko's thoughts, writings, lyrics, interviews, quotes, and her life story interwoven with John's life story in some points as well. And it is called In Your Mind. And our guest today is none other than Madeline Bocaro. Madeline, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Jude. I'm so happy to be with you.
Well, this is a gorgeous book. And I have to admit, I had not read extensively about Yoko because I haven't gotten to that part of the John Lennon series yet. In the next book, she said, which I'm just starting to work on, they are going to meet. And in fact, they'll meet pretty soon because, of the early meeting of coming to talk to him about John Cage's A Gift for John Cage. So it's coming soon, but I hadn't reached that point yet. So I hadn't done my research. I was fascinated with this book. It is phenomenal. Now, right at the very beginning, I think it's like page 7, you say, this is not a biography of Yoko. It's a love letter. So that is, as Monty Python would say, something completely different than a biography. So tell me why you chose this very avant-garde artistic format of writing, composing a love letter to Yoko.
Well, we actually started out as pen pals. So love letters were always going back and forth. And if you spend 5 minutes with Yoko, you can see why John was blown away by her. I mean, I spent a lot of time in her presence and I felt what John felt, really. I just loved her. And I wanted to honor that and convey her essence, especially because there's so many lies written about her. Her story is beautiful, incredible, harrowing, exciting. And it's all intertwined with the love story between her and John. And in fact, one of John and Yoko's closest friends and assistant, Dan Richter, said that I went deep into her soul, which is very important. And, she's basically a healer at heart. So at first she made art to heal herself. And later on, she made for others. And she had a tragic childhood, a really hard childhood. And 33 years before she met John, and then she was with him less than 13 years and then over 45 years without him now. So I just wanted to show everyone what John loved about her and illustrate her philosophies and her perspectives that are very, very unique, but they make perfect sense. And I wanted to piece it all together and let her tell her own story. I used a lot of her quotes from everything I'd saved over the decades.
Yeah, it's so perfectly done because you will have a quote from something that she had written, a piece of poetry, and then you'll have a Twitter quote from her, and then you'll have an excerpt from one of her works, and that it's a collage. It's almost like you're building an artistic creation of who she is by ripping sheets of paper and putting them onto a huge canvas, and the canvas, of course, is your book.
Yeah, it fit together like a puzzle. I always, since I was 10, I was saving everything she ever did in 1968. So I had tons of it. And I guess I memorized a lot of it and I just knew where to look for these exact quotes. I'm writing about this song now. Let me see. I know she talked about this in Enemy in 1974 and I would get the quote, and no one else could have done it, I don't think, because I just randomly knew where to find all these things.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And it certainly gave me an education, not only on her life story, which, as you say, she essentially was abandoned in World War II and had to live life on the streets. I mean,
It wasn't like that. It was, she came from one of the three wealthiest families in all of
right,
Japan, like the
right.
Rockefellers. Her mother descended from the Yasuda clan.
Yeah,
And that didn't help them when the war came along. They were just as vulnerable as anyone else. So the parents, they were socialites. So she grew up very isolated, with servants and nobody her age to play with. And she was so, so lonely. And then gets evacuated to the countryside with her siblings, and she has to take care of them. She's the oldest, and they're foraging for food. They're starving, and all these riches did them no good at the time, and she had to live through that. So that was
right.
a really horrible time. And John, was just as lonely because his parents abandoned him as well. They each experienced childhood traumas and loss of loved ones, and they had recurring emotional problems stemming from all that pain. So they kind of understood and saved each other. And they were
Yeah,
fragile, basically. Think of John as a superstar and Yoko as whatever, an artist, but individual, they were very fragile and otherworldly even. And they got together and they became stronger and grounded. And I don't think either of them would have lived longer if they hadn't met each other. And they were soulmates from the opposite ends of the world. They loved all that they were from so far away, yet they were so much the same. And they created this dream world so they could exist, really. And they involved us in it, with all the positivity and the creativity. And they just wanted to emanate, peace and love. And they were flickering across TV screens and dancing through airports. And they were almost like merged as one, all flurry and white, And I just loved all that, seeing them on TV when I was a kid and the bed-ins and all that, feeling like I was part of history. But then ultimately fame tore them apart, but their love kept them together, coming back to each other.
yeah. Because done so much research on John's life and writing the John Lennon series, I'm just blown away by probably the first 100 pages of the book where you're showing the parallels between John and Yoko as children,
Right.
as teenagers, as young adults. Give us some of those parallels and tell me why you really feel that they are kindred spirits.
Well, John was also born during the air raids on Liverpool. He played in burned out bomb sites, as a child, abandoned by his parents, as I said. And after bonding with his mother later on, she was killed right, when he was still in his teens, and that was tragic. And Mostly, they both felt like they were highly intelligent and that nobody else understood them. And they had to share these secrets, or they knew how to heal the world. And that's what they tried to do. It was a big, undertaking, but they tried, but art was their catharsis, and they wanted to heal others through peaceful methods.
And I think you also point out that they both, because they feel a need to be loved and to be appreciated, and they don't feel like they're getting that at home, they reach out to the world for that understanding and for that validation. And I know in John's case, I mean, he tells you that he has every reason on earth to be alternately mad or sad because he just lost the only love he had. And if he
Right.
could get his way, he'd get locked up, but he can't. So he cries instead. Doesn't want to do it when there's people there. He gets shy when they shout and stare. This is Yoko's story too. She is not, she is trying to tell the world who.
The next line is want to hide myself away, which she did in the bagism. She got inside a bag because she just felt that she didn't want to be judged. And it's just much easier to communicate when you're not face to face with someone. So that was
Yeah,
another similarity.
the similarities are uncanny. And I kept going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I really did not realize that they had that much in common. And it is, it's really an eye opener, guys. You've got to get this book. It's In Your Mind, The Infinite Universe of Yoko Ono. And it's the kind of book that you can pick up and read selections from, as well as read cover to cover, because on every page there's a gem of beauty and there's a gem of wisdom. And
Exactly. And the reason it's like that is it started out as a bunch of short stories I'd written all my life about Alvin, artwork, a little scenario of her and John. So they're all like self-contained little stories. So you don't lose the plot if you just read a section of it.
that's right. That's right. It really is an intriguing book. Now, one of the quotes that I was really drawn to is a quote from John that I hadn't ever even read before. And I think that this is the kind of gem that you will pick up in this book. There are things in here that you haven't read a bazillion trillion times. This is new and unique material. And this is John speaking. The Beatles and their ilk were created by the vacuum of non-conscription for the army. It suddenly ended in Britain when I was still 16. Was looking forward to hiding in Ireland because they still had the conscription, and then it was all over. And from then on, the whole music thing burst out, and we just knew we were the army that never was. We were the generation that were allowed to live, and the music came out of that. See, I never even heard that.
Yeah, and after my book came out, that quote was used in one of the Beatles film, which was about the 60s, the one that just came out like 6 months ago. They used that at the end of the film. So I thought, wow, that I don't remember where I cited that from, but a lot of the magazines and things I cited the quotes from are defunct, like just very strange little independent publications that I'd saved, and I've got a lot of really great quotes.
Yeah, you really do. Well, why why did you decide to make this into a collage of Yoko's work instead of doing just a straightforward, she was born, she went to school, she did this, she did that? Why this
Because
form?
that's boring. When you read these biographies, the mother imported cheese to Ireland and the father imported crackers to, Switzerland. So what? But her ancestry is incredible. So was able to weave a beautiful story about that by weaving it around John's visit to Japan to meet her family, and the first time in 1971 and then again in the 80s. So it's all revolving around John, and there are similarities and differences. But it just came together this way because I really, really wanted to use her own words. So I was able to just some of the tweets, the way I got them, I used to save them at the end of every week. I'd save the 7 tweets. And then I thought one day, oh, maybe I'll just cut these up and put them in envelopes by category. Whenever I was writing about a certain thing, like the chapter about nature in her work, or the chapter about her Japanese influence, or the chapter about, music or self-help or whatever, I would go to that envelope and I would, take my favorite tweets.
Yeah, it's a pastiche. I mean, there are layers, and I mean, there's the documentary information of what happened. So you're getting the story, then you're getting the tweets, then you're getting quotes from her work, and then you're getting quotes from John. And it is just it's a multi-layered narrative of her life.
Right, but I still wanted to use simple language because I just think that all of her work is so simple and her messages are so straightforward. And most books about her are mainly about her art, not her life. And they're also over intellectualizing it so much that even somebody who adores her can become bored or confused. So I wanted to just I just wanted to show her how she really is and keep it simple.
You even included at the end of the book her 5 favorite songs, which I thought was very interesting,
Right.
especially number 3, which is John's lullaby that he would sing to Sean each night, which is one of my favorite songs, Liverpool Blue.
Liverpool.
And
And then surprising, there are such old-fashioned songs. If you think about it, she's born in 1933, so she's a teenager in the 40s, right? So she's not listening to rock and roll or going to nightclubs. She's hearing, older songs, even if they're from America or England. And John was playing older songs for her as well.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
really a lovely book. And for those of you out there that don't like Yoko Ono, you need to read this book, because what's not to like? Um, this is an artist. This is a creative individual, an author, a thinker, a philosopher, and she's not who you think she is. So, I mean, give it a shot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was so happy that her family and friends and the colleagues are really appreciative that, I told them things they didn't know, or I showed them sides of her that they didn't know. And they just, Sean's been very supportive, and there's nothing that means more to me than that. And her daughter loving it. And, it's just Ringo has it now. And I'm just getting it into the right hands, really. I just, especially people who know her, I want them to know even more. And ones who don't know her, you're really only hurting yourselves by carrying around hate or ill will or any kind of those feelings. And you're doing John a tremendous injustice, because all he wanted to do was, tell people how wonderful she was.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Well, tell people where they can get In Your Mind and how they can follow you on social media.
So it's on Amazon worldwide. That hardcover that you're holding, the softcover is on Amazon. The hardcover that you're holding is only available at conceptualbooks.com with the option of having it signed by me. And there's a website, inyourmindbook.com. You can see all the reviews, a lot of pictures, podcasts I've done. And there's a social media link tree that I think you're going to be posting below the
I will be.
video.
It will actually be on the screen and is on the screen right now
Great.
for everyone. So I don't think you're going to be at the Chicago Fest for Beatles fans. Is
No,
that
but I think the book will be there in the major store, the big flea market thing they have there.
great? And when can people see you again soon?
Probably at the next fest. I think there's some event in November in Asbury Park, a Beatles convention of sorts. And that's it for now, I guess.
That's the Rubber Soul Conference, everyone. That is the 7th, 8th, and 9th of November. And it is going to be phenomenal. For those of you who didn't attend the White Album Conference in 2018, it's a remarkable weekend. And I highly recommend that you make reservations now, because I'm sure the hotel they've designated is filling up. Rubber Soul Conference. So Madeline will be there for that. Madeline, we end every show by asking everyone the same question. What's your favorite John Lennon quote? And it could be lyrics or something he said or wrote or whatever.
Well, he said a lot of amazing things, heavy things, philosophical things. hilarious things. One of them is Time Wounds All Heals. We love that one. But I'm just going to pick the lyrics of Imagine. You may see I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. And Yoko's compatible quote, which is a dream you dream alone is only a dream, but a dream we dream together is reality. They're saying the same thing in different songs, and that was their message.
I've just been reading the Andy Peebles interviews on the 6th of December with John and Yoko, in which John says he's talking about Imagine, and he says, I really messed up because I didn't bill that as Lennon Ono. He said, had I written a song with David Bowie, it would have been Lennon Bowie. Had I written a song with any other man, I would have billed it that way. But because she was the wife, I didn't bill it that way, and I should have, because Imagine is as much her song as it is mine. So
Right.
both of those quotes are from both are John and Yoko. So,
and luckily that's been corrected now in 2017. She's been given the co-writing credit, and 2 awards, and his and hers were given to her. So that's
that
really
is so great. Well, thank you for such an artistic, meticulous, and yet lovely work. And thank you for opening many Beatles fans' eyes to who Yoko really was.
I'm so happy you appreciate it and love it so much and are spreading the word. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being on the show, and I'll look forward to seeing you in November at
Yes.
the Rubber Soul Conference. Thank you, everyone, for being here for Tell Me Why, and we shall see you soon. Our next episode is coming up in just a couple of weeks with Bruce Spicer and his brand new book. So we'll be talking with him soon. Thank you, Tara, and shine on.